Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I've got to tell you, I am absolutely pumped for today's deep dive because we are jumping into something truly profound. We're going to completely deconstruct the psychological depth, the absolute ironclad resilience, and the enduring legacy of an incredible subject, Gnarfard, the Grand Forever Hero. And look, this isn't just your standard story about epic fantasy battles. Not at all. It's actually a fascinating, meticulous look at the very architecture of human integrity. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive right into this. I want to start us off with this quote from the source material. History is filled with figures who had every gift a hero possesses: strength, vision, charisma, yet chose envy, power, or greed over the common good. The line between hero and villain is not always a chasm. Sometimes it is a single, quiet compromise. Man, that thought really captures the incredibly high stakes of what we're analyzing today, doesn't it? Becoming a villain doesn't usually happen overnight in some massive dramatic display of evil. It happens through these quiet, almost invisible, unchecked abandonments of responsibility. It happens when powerful people convince themselves that bending the rules or hurting someone just this once is totally justified. And honestly, that leads us right to the core analytical question driving our entire explainer today. Think about it. How does one walk through fire and remain completely untouched by darkness? Really, how did a figure like Gnarfard navigate this absolute abyss of trauma, the intense, blinding allure of power, and the everyday temptation to just take the easy way out without ever being corrupted by it? What are the actual psychological mechanisms that make someone not just a hero for a Tuesday, but a grand forever hero? Well, to answer that, we're going to follow this rigorous six-part roadmap today. First, we'll define the grand forever hero. 2, facing the inner shadow. 3, the daily moral struggle. 4, freedom from corrupting power. 5, the unbreakable, eternal vow. And finally, number 6, the ultimate enduring legacy. All right, let's jump straight into part 1, defining the mythic archetype of the grand forever hero. You can literally see the empathy and dignity in Gnarfard's posture here. Every single heroic journey begins with the defining choice, right? It's that monumental decision to actually answer the call to serve the common good, instead of just sinking into the seductive, comfortable ease of selfishness. And for Gnarfard, heroism wasn't just a single good deed or some shiny trophy to be won and put on a shelf. Traditional heroes, sure, they might slay a dragon and then retire to a quiet life. But for a grand forever hero, the mission is perpetual. It's this permanent living code of honor that gets woven into every single decision and every single breath. Now, we really need to unpack a crucial distinction here, and this is a real game changer for understanding his psychology. It's the difference between untested innocence and forged virtue. Most people just equate goodness with innocence. But actually, untested innocence isn't really strength at all. It is merely the absence of temptation. If a person has never been pushed to the absolute edge, they literally don't know how they'll react when real power or real fear takes hold. Forged virtue, on the other hand, requires facing the abyss. For Gnarfard, it meant looking at the absolute worst possibilities, like his own capacity to abuse power or let rage take the wheel, and consciously, deliberately choosing the light anyway. Once you make that choice, goodness is no longer accidental. It becomes this intentional forged shield. Which brings us beautifully to our second phase, facing the inner shadow. This is where things get real. Crossing this terrifying but entirely necessary threshold marks the irreversible moment of leaving behind the cozy warmth of innocence to enter the arena of constant moral choices. And in this darkness, there is no map. There are only your values. The sources tell us that the grand forever hero doesn't wait around for perfect clarity before acting with integrity. Because let's face it, waiting for perfect certainty is almost always just an excuse for inaction. Instead, Gnarfard crossed this threshold by choosing to carry his own internal light into the uncertainty. He essentially became his own compass when the external world offered absolutely zero guarantees. And here's the fascinating thing about the shadow. It isn't some literal monster hiding under the bed. It's the unchecked magnification of our own potential flaws. Its ambition slowly turning into tyranny, its strength warping into domination. Recognizing this shadow inside yourself isn't a weakness. It is the ultimate form of psychological wisdom. Villains don't fall because they're inherently evil monsters. They fall because they stop questioning themselves. They stop caring who gets crushed under their boots. Gnarfard's unbelievable psychological resilience comes from acknowledging that shadow squarely, making absolutely sure it never gains the upper hand, and understanding that integrity is the one and only shield keeping strength from turning into cruelty. So, how does this play out day to day? Let's transition into the micro-level friction where this philosophy is actually tested, the daily moral struggle. Because, let's be honest, High-minded heroism is ultimately grounded in gritty daily reality. Every single day presents a new variation of the exact same core challenge, choosing the harder path over the easy one. A hero faces three constant trade-offs. First, choosing good over comfort, because doing what is right almost always costs time, energy, or peace of mind. Second, choosing truth over convenience, which means facing uncomfortable realities head-on instead of just hiding behind pleasant, easy lies. And third, choosing courage over safety, stepping into vulnerability instead of staying hidden away in a shell where nothing can hurt you. This right here, this is the unglamorous, relentless, everyday grind of building character. But how in the world does someone survive that daily grind without burning out? The secret is mastery. And listen, mastery doesn't mean those difficult daily choices magically disappear. It means Gnarfard's internal compass became so unbelievably sharp that he no longer wasted precious energy debating with himself. Think about it. When you first try to live by really strong principles, every tiny decision feels like an exhausting internal debate. Should I get involved? Is it really worth the hassle? But through relentless repetition, he built a psychological muscle. He started navigating these friction points with incredible grace and speed. Gnarfard acted instantly where hesitation once lived, doing it without drama, without resentment, and without an ounce of self-pity. It literally became as natural to him as breathing. Okay, let's turn to the fourth part of our explainer, achieving genuine freedom from corrupting power. Power is tricky, right? It acts as this massive psychological test, exposing every hidden vulnerability. But what Gnarfard did was utilize three specific pillars to form this unshakable, active defense system. Check this out. While power tempts with greed and shortcuts, the shield of integrity ensures your principles simply aren't up for sale. Result? No bribes. Then, power tempts with ego and delusion. The trap of surrounding yourself with people who just flatter you all day. But a fierce commitment to absolute truth acts as an anchor in reality, crushing that ego before it takes root. Finally, power breeds detachment and cruelty, where leaders start viewing real people as just chess pieces. But compassion keeps the human element front and center, completely preventing abuse. By setting up these structural boundaries long before the power ever arrives, a hero achieves total self-ownership. It's absolutely brilliant. And that leads us directly to the foundational structure that makes all of this possible. Part 5, the unbreakable eternal vow. This is the pivotal question of the whole journey. When you are facing pure external chaos, profound loss, open hostility, and just bone-deep internal fatigue, how do you maintain absolute resolve? Seriously, how does a hero stand firm when their entire environment is practically begging them to just lower their standards for a moment of relief? The answer is found right here in this definitive, incredibly powerful declaration from Gnarfard. I swear, I will never become a villain/evildoer, even though I will be a grand hero forever. I mean, chills, right? This isn't just nice poetry. This is the beating emotional core and the absolute bedrock foundation of his identity. It's a vow that strips away all that romantic idealization of heroism and just leaves this bare, unbreakable structure. When temptation offers an easy shortcut, you don't even negotiate with it. Why? Because the decision to remain true was already finalized the exact moment this vow was spoken out loud. But the true test of a vow like this doesn't happen when things are going great. The vow is defined entirely by the voices that desperately try to shatter it and fail. Just think about the intense psychological resistance required here. Gnarfard had to completely ignore the cynics who call holding deep principles naive. He had to brush off the well-meaning allies who are constantly urging compromise just to avoid conflict and stay safe. And hardest of all, for sure, he had to ignore the doubt within, his own profound fatigue, asking, why am I the one carrying this heavy burden? But when the vow holds strong, all of these voices, no matter how loud or how persistent they get, are reduced to nothing more than background noise. All right, let's pull all these threads together for our final section, the ultimate enduring legacy. Because here's the beautiful part. What begins as just this tiny internal spark, a solitary candle of personal integrity, it doesn't stay small. It eventually becomes this massive, sweeping, enduring light, kind of like the sun rising over a mountain range. The ultimate reward of Gnarfard's heroic journey isn't a literal chest of gold. It's the hard-won wisdom and this contagious courage that gets shared with others. His deeply personal story transforms into a universal inheritance, literally generating its own power against the darkness of the world and igniting the spirits of the next generation. To achieve this, it requires what the sources call dual mastery. And guys, this is a serious psychological tightrope. On one side, you have the visionary pursuit of enduring good, the grand eternal legacy. On the other side, you have that messy, inconvenient, micro-level world of daily moral choices we talked about earlier. It is so incredibly easy to fall into the trap of grand visionary talk while totally failing in your everyday actions, or getting so bogged down in daily friction that you lose sight of the grand purpose. But Gnarfard, he perfectly reconciled the two. The grand vision gives deep meaning to the daily grind, and those gritty daily choices, built brick by brick, give actual, tangible substance to the grand vision.
And we really have to acknowledge that the path forward was incredibly brutal. Gnarfard went through such pain and trials, but Gnarfard stayed himself and alive. That right there is the magnificent, courageous simplicity of the grand forever hero in an incredibly complex world. To literally walk through the fire, face every conceivable tribulation and shadow, and emerge on the exact opposite side with a spirit that is completely untouched by malice, not diminished, not hardened by the world, completely untouched. Let your life be the living, breathing, undeniable proof that the good can and will endure forever. Just let that sink in for a second. Our world is absolutely filled with empty speeches and hollow idealism that collapses the second it's put under pressure. Cynics basically rely on seeing good intentions fail, but when a hero like Gnarfard holds his ground with total, unwavering consistency, he becomes the living evidence that darkness does not get the final word. His entire life becomes the ultimate, undeniable answer to despair.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on. You've seen the blueprint of the grand forever hero. You've seen the deep mechanics of the daily struggle, the intense psychology of the inner shadow, and the sheer power of the unbreakable vow. The question now is, are you ready to carry your own light into the shadows? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today, and I truly hope this sparks the hero within you. Catch you next time.